quickly for our second and final speaker in this, I guess you might call it mini session. She hails from Silicon Valley and has had an enviable string of work experiences, including Stanford University, Apple, Google, Amazon. Over in the UK, she helped KPMG set up their AI Center for Excellence. And she's here today picking up on the AI theme, but again, with a different twist. She believes that we've obviously heard stories of potential, but also stories of peril with regard to AI. She believes that user research can play a critical role in making an AI for good, one that is both effective, but also inclusive. So can we welcome Rachel Walker to our stage, please?
Amazing. I'm going to copy the water idea because I too have a cold. Amazing. It's a little spicy today. Okay.
Just shaking your head.
Amazing. Cool. And I even matched the stage. You'll have to see it. Okay. Awesome. So I think I know why we're all here, and that's for extended train-based metaphors. Generally speaking, I'm fairly good at not getting on a train until I've confirmed that it's going where I want it to go. The exception to this is when the doors are about to close, I step off the escalator, I see a train going in the direction that I want, and some animalistic part of my brain panics. I throw myself through the doors before I even know what's happening, only to realize that I'm heading towards Stratford instead of Canary Wharf and that I'm late for work. I think this is a pretty good analogy for how a lot of companies have been feeling ever since the AI craze has set in. Usually, successful companies are fairly good at making sure that whatever product they're designing serves actual user needs, and they follow the appropriate development processes and quality controls. All of that has gone out the window as companies are abandoning best practices and trying to rush to shoehorn in AI features wherever it's easiest, which has led to suboptimal products at best and genuine harm at worst. But I think that user research can potentially help address this. So in a moment, I'm going to walk you through the ways that user research can help AI and how AI can help user research. But I think it's worth touching on why any of this matters. It can be easy to dismiss AI as a fad or a gimmick, but there are serious real-world implications for AI implementation that's done poorly that are already happening today. And I appreciate that Cedra already went through this with us, or went through this for me earlier in a way better way, so love it. But another example of this is cancer detection. So cancer detection is one of the most promising AI use cases in recent years, and it's already saving lives. One example of this is the early detection of skin cancer. Unfortunately, the data sets that the models are being built off of are primarily based off of patients with lighter skin tones, which have led the models to be less successful at identifying skin cancer in darker skinned patients. This is exacerbating existing inequities within healthcare and is leading, unfortunately, to more lost lives, especially since skin cancer is already far more lethal for people of color. It is possible to adjust the models so that they're less biased, and scientists have had some success in doing so, but that's a conscious decision that needs to be made and prioritized. So how can UX research help GenAI? So one thing I want to note before we get into it is that I'm not just speaking to the user researchers in the room. I may point out strategies that researchers can use, but these apply to designers, PMs, or anyone who's in a position to advocate for the user. For some of the use cases, I'm going to be referencing use generative AI or GenAI. Others will use other types of machine learning technology. GenAI is a subsection of AI, so the two terms aren't interchangeable, but we don't have time to get into that distinction, so you'll need to just roll with it. A big part of the role that researchers can play to make sure that AI is being used for good has less to do with any particular tool or use case, and more to do with the role that researchers naturally play within an organization. The core role of the researcher is to advocate for user needs. So just doing our jobs like we normally would can help to mitigate some of the harms. We challenge assumptions, we insist on designing products that are useful, usable, and accessible, and we make sure that genuine user needs are being addressed. There are some specific things that researchers can do, which I'll highlight, but a lot of these are just things a good researcher would naturally be doing. In an ideal world, researchers would run a study to identify pain points, designers would design a product that addresses those pain points, and then through that it may lead to some sort of technological advancement. Too frequently, especially in tech, it'll go the other way around. So a company's data scientists will make an exciting innovation that they're excited about. Designers will be told to design a product using that technology, and then researchers will be asked to run a study that proves that the users like the product, even if it isn't actually addressing any user needs. Those products tend to not do very well, I can say from experience. When it comes to AI, researchers can identify pain points that then drive the creation of AI use cases, and then help to prioritize which of these pain points will make the most meaningful impact for users, as opposed to just going with whatever use cases are easiest to implement quickly to please the investors. An important aspect of a researcher's role is to challenge assumptions. In a space as new, amorphous, and fast-moving as AI, a lot of companies are having to rely on assumptions instead of data because the data is limited or just doesn't exist. Take user sentiment around AI in general. A lot of companies seem to assume that everyone is going to be excited about AI features, but this isn't actually the case. Studies have shown that there's actually a lot of AI negativity in the wider population, especially when it comes to chatbots. A company introducing a chatbot for their service desk may save them money because they can have to pay fewer employees, but a lot of end users aren't happy about the rise of AI chatbots, not to mention that mass layoffs are rarely good for company morale. We have a CNN article here about a company that fired 90% of their support staff overnight and replaced them with a chatbot that it says in the article was built in 2 days. I don't think it will be a huge surprise to learn that a year and a half later, this company has a 1.4-star rating on Trustpilot. Quickly grab my water. Yeah, it's a little bit too shaky. We're gonna just move over here. All right, so quick caveat, it is not the case that every new feature is always going to equally benefit every user group, obviously. But if certain user groups are routinely favored over others, or a new feature is introduced that creates a worse experience for different user groups, then you've got a problem, and it's the researcher's job to help address this. The first is to make sure that the data that's being used to feed the models is inclusive and representative of all users. My first user research job was at Amazon, collecting recordings of people speaking in different accents to then feed back to the machine learning models. Alexa's always been fairly good at understanding my accent because I'm from the Silicon Valley. But given that we're in Scotland, I would imagine some of you have had experiences in the past with AI assistants not always understanding you. So making sure that the data that is being used to feed the models is representative can help address this. Similarly, researchers can make sure that user testing involves a diverse sample as well. So if you're always doing your user testing with the most easily accessible user group, you're setting yourself up to design experiences that don't address the needs of the wider user base. And lastly, you can make sure that performance and feedback is being monitored post-launch. So if there are inclusivity issues, you can address them. An example of when it was very good that a product was being monitored post-launch was Microsoft's racist Twitter bot, Tay. Some of you may remember this from nearly a decade ago now, but Microsoft released a Twitter bot that lasted less than a day before it started spouting off racist hate speech and had to be taken down. If they hadn't been monitoring the product post-launch, it might have done a lot more damage. Also, the fact that this was nearly a decade ago just about broke my brain, but we don't have time to get into that either. AI-powered features can have serious implications for privacy. Through the researcher's role as an advocate for user needs, they can caution against the development of features that infringe on user privacy. An example of this is the Meta portal. The portal was released in the wake of the Cambridge Analytica scandal, in which Facebook improperly handled user data, and the public's trust of Facebook was at an all-time low. So launching a product with an AI-powered always-on camera was a bold strategy. Facebook ended up using the data collected by the portal devices for targeted advertising, which they originally said they were not going to be doing. I know some of the researchers who were advocating against this internally, but sadly they were overruled. There's also regulations. So within any given company, usually the legal department is the group that knows the most about GDPR. But the group that knows the second most is often user researchers. Researchers have become de facto GDPR experts, in part because of the implications for how we can conduct our research, and in part for the implications for the products that we're helping design. So potentially researchers could serve a similar role for understanding the ever-evolving AI regulations. It isn't often that designers are tasked with designing an entirely new way of interacting with technology. That's kind of what's happening with recent advancements in natural language processing. We can either design interactions that are widely usable and accessible, or we can design interactions that are not and then try to retroactively adjust them, which doesn't work nearly as well. These new advancements have the potential to enable digital experiences that previously wouldn't have been possible, such as visually impaired users being able to interface through spoken commands. But if these interactions aren't designed with accessibility in mind, then these users may get left behind from the benefits that the advancements can provide. Designing products with users of varying needs from the beginning, so not just after the design's already in place, but during the foundational research phase, will lead to better products for everyone. And this doesn't just apply for users with accessibility needs. Low tech-savvy users should also be able to benefit from these advancements, and if the designs aren't intuitive, they'll be left behind. Including things like useful tips and product tours can help to level the playing field. Throughout the research process, researchers can identify potential negative outcomes and preemptively address them, either through changing the product during the design phase or adding age restrictions, guardrails, or warnings. One example of this is how Instagram flags AI-generated content and provides warnings about the risk of misinformation. It might not be possible to completely ban AI-generated content from the platform, but once a potential negative outcome has been identified, taking steps like these can help to mitigate some of the potential harm. On the flip side, we have how AI can help user research. I'm going to walk you through various AI tools and use cases that can be applied to user research, starting with the mundane and moving towards a few that seem like they've been taken straight from a science fiction film. These use cases promise to make UX research more effective, efficient, and maybe even fun. All of the use cases I'm going to show you already exist today, but for some of them, it's not yet clear whether they work or even whether they're a good idea. I'm not here to advocate for or against any of them, but hopefully you come away from this with a better understanding of what to expect in the next few years. There's a decent chance a lot of you are already using our first example, which is brainstorming augmentation. I wouldn't recommend using this as the first step in the brainstorming portion of a workshop because you don't want to bias people or disrupt their creativity. But once everyone's had an opportunity to contribute their ideas, it can be useful to see if an AI assistant can come up with anything that your group hasn't already. It can also be helpful when kicking off a new research study during the background research phase, especially with the introduction of the new reasoning models, but it shouldn't be your only source of information, and you still need to double-check the citations to make sure that the sources are trustworthy and that they actually exist because hallucinations are still an issue. There's also data visualization and upskilling. It used to be the case that impressive data visualization was only available for quant experts, but GenAI has gotten really good at creating charts and graphs based off of natural language commands. Instead of spending ages manually adjusting your chart, you can just type in, add a legend in the bottom right, or use the median instead of the mean, and it'll automatically adjust it for you. It can also be helpful for troubleshooting unfamiliar quant platforms, so if you can't remember the right Excel formula, or you don't know where to find something in Looker, asking your AI assistant might be a lot faster than searching through endless help guides. In practice, it's reducing the barrier to entry and enabling researchers who aren't as familiar with quantitative analysis to be able to try their hand at it. And if you already are an Excel whiz, now people are less likely to bother you for help, which is a win in and of itself. AI has also made interview transcription a lot more reliable than it used to be. I remember when it was first released more widely, and it was basically useless. It still struggles a bit if you have a strong accent or have multiple people speaking over each other, like in a focus group, but it does a pretty good job. Summarization at scale is likely the first big change we're going to see. Back when I worked at Google, we had these rolling surveys with thousands of free response answers that the poor research assistants would literally spend days hand coding one by one to extract insights, and then have to do it all again the next month when the new results came in. Summarization is one of the things that AI is best at today, so more and more companies are starting to rely on it. That doesn't mean we should just trust whatever the AI spits out, but I think the skill needed by researchers is going to go from being able to hand code open-ended responses one by one to being able to sense check that the AI hasn't missed anything or made up any insights that aren't backed up by the data. So I promise I don't work for any of the companies that I'm going to be showing examples from, so this isn't a paid product placement or anything. But this is a screenshot of the Qualtrics user testing platform. So we've got recordings of all of the interviews from this study, and then the AI automatically conducts sentiment analysis and theme extraction for each interview. That bit is useful, but not particularly groundbreaking. What is a bit newer is that panel on the left that has the summary of all of the interviews taken together. It automatically conducts sentiment analysis, theme extraction, and then identifies quotes that are representative of each of those themes. Some of you may already be using image generation tools for your persona imagery. Instead of spending ages hunting through stock photos, you can just type in whatever you're looking for, and Midjourney or DALL-E will whip up some options for you. It can also be useful for creating imagery for presentations, like this one, or reports. Let's say you have a smart display product, and one of your personas is someone who primarily uses the smart display with their family. This is what Midjourney gave me when I asked it to create a photograph of the family using their smart display in their home to communicate. You should still double check that everybody has an appropriate number of arms and such, but it does a pretty good job. There's also a lot of busy work in UX research associated with content generation and refinement. AI is pretty good at taking a first stab at drafting something like a recruitment email that you can then tweak to suit your needs, or even as a starting place when drafting a survey. You can also adjust the tone of content that you've already written, so you can ask it to make your discussion guide friendlier or less leading. Now we'll get into some of the more cutting-edge use cases. I think real-time language translation is the change that I'm most excited about, and also one of the ones that I'm most skeptical of at this point. Right now, you're fairly limited to only interviewing participants who can speak the languages that your research team can speak, unless you want to hire translators, which can get really expensive. Real-time language translation will allow you to interview users who previously would have been excluded due to the language barrier, which unfortunately oftentimes are some of the most marginalized groups. It can also be helpful for translating surveys, and especially the open-ended responses in surveys. Theoretically, this is something that's already available right now. The Google Pixel Buds offer in-ear translation. So our blurb says, when you want to talk with someone, you can use conversation mode. When you want to follow along and understand what's being said, transcribe mode lets you hear spoken language translated right in your ear, accompanied with a transcript on your phone. I've never tried them, so I don't know if they actually work, but if we can nail the technology, it's going to open so many doors. We also have better participatory design. Imagine you're in a workshop with a participant and you're doing a co-design exercise in which the participant is being asked to generate ideas for a new product. Previously, this would have been entirely conceptual, or maybe you're able to whip up a few quick sketches. GenAI will allow designers to bring these ideas to life in real time. So instead of running an ideation session, going away to create some wireframes, and then getting feedback on those wireframes in a different session, you'll now be able to generate wireframes on the spot and collaboratively make changes with participants within the same session. It's a lot faster, and it's also a lot more fun for the participant. I've got an example of the auto designer feature from Miro Labs on the next slide. So just imagine you're using this in the context of a workshop session. And now we pray that the video works and that the sound works. Okay, we're gonna just kind of turn the sound on and then stand nearby. It's not necessary, it's just helpful for vibes. All right, we don't care about sound. Ta-da! All right. We also have pattern identification. So predictive analytics have gotten a lot better with GenAI. Right now, we're fairly good at being able to track what users have done in the past, but predictive analytics allows you to model what users are likely to do in the future. You can take all of the user data that you have and make predictions of what's likely to happen if you were to make certain changes. So if you drop the price of an item by a small amount for a holiday sale, revenue may go up because people are drawn to the sale. But if you drop it by too much, then revenue may go down. Predictive analytics allows you to find that sweet spot that maximizes profits based on things like current market trends, performance on previous holiday sales, or whatever you can get your hands on. It could also potentially be helpful for making changes to a user journey on a platform or website. We also have simulated eye tracking studies, which also uses previous data to predict future behavior. Scientists have taken all of the data they have on eye tracking, which is a lot, and created models that can predict how humans are likely to analyze new screens or stimuli based on that previous data. This is a tool called Neurons AI, which uses existing data to create attention heat maps that mirror those built on direct eye tracking studies. This tool generates scores based on focus, cognitive demand, clarity, and engagement. This allows for A/B testing between different designs to see which performs best instantly. Normally, eye tracking is really expensive, time-consuming, and unwieldy to run, so this is a lot cheaper and easier. I have no idea if it works in practice or not, but it exists. We also have AI-led interviews and surveys. You can use voice-enabled chatbots to moderate interviews for you, potentially without you even needing to be there. Personally, I think this is likely a terrible idea, but there may be some circumstances where it could work. We know there are some situations where people are more likely to be honest with an AI than with a human. One of these is self-reported alcohol consumption. People are more likely to underreport their alcohol consumption when asked by a doctor than by an AI. So there may be some times where taking the human element out of it may actually be a good thing. This also has implications for surveys. So right now, one of the main benefits of running an interview over a survey is that you can't ask follow-up questions on a survey. That may be changing soon. Qualtrics has a new feature that allows you to toggle on AI-generated follow-up questions if someone gives a vague response on a survey. So our original question was, how could Gamma Airlines have improved your experience? The respondent simply put entertainment options. If I'm a researcher, maybe that's helpful for me, but then my immediate question is, okay, what entertainment options? The AI is able to generate the question, I see that entertainment options are important to you. Could you share what types of entertainment options you would have enjoyed during your flight? And the participant responded, it could use more kids' content like games for my children. That's much more actionable, and it might save me the trouble of running a follow-up survey about entertainment options. From the quantitative side of things, we have synthetic user data. GenAI can create synthetic user data to supplement data for underrepresented user groups in a model or survey, or to allow for analysis of sensitive information where you don't want to use the actual data for whatever reason. Moving on to our last two examples, which are some of the more science fiction sounding, we have hyper-personalization. With GenAI, you don't just personalize the user experience based on a user persona, you personalize it based on the individual. Like personalized Netflix recommendations, but for the entire user experience. AI customizes what information is presented to each individual user, in what order, and with what kind of tone or wording. It can also bring together different sources of information that previously would have been really difficult to integrate, which allows for a more robust understanding of each individual user. Our last example is probably the one that I'm most skeptical of, sorry, Matt, which is synthetic user personas. Matt did a better job explaining this than I could, but essentially, researchers take everything they know about an existing user persona and fuse it with an autonomous agent, aka a simulated entity that mimics human interactions and behavior. Essentially, you turn your user persona into a chatbot. This allows researchers to ask questions of the synthetic user persona like they would for a normal user interview, and the autonomous agent can respond using the information that you gave it about the user persona. You can even make your synthetic user personas talk to each other, which isn't useful, but it is cool. Last slide, I promise. I think right now the biggest barrier for these AI use cases is trust. If I still feel the need to hand code all of my open-ended survey responses because I don't trust the AI's analysis, then that's not saving me time, that's costing me time. But if I cross-reference my insights with the AI's insights enough times, eventually I can feel more comfortable shifting to scanning for important edge cases instead of doing the coding myself. A lot of these ideas are nice in theory, but their usefulness hinges entirely on execution, which I think remains to be seen for a lot of them. I think right now we're at a precipice. The ideas are there, and if they work as promised, then researchers will start using them. But if the AI is generating outputs that are inaccurate or low quality, I don't think a lot of researchers are going to be willing to give them a second chance once that trust has been broken. Some of these ideas will stand the test of time and some won't, but I'm excited to see how it plays out. Thank you.